Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at MegaMetroCity. MegaMetroCity is brought to you by Boombox Board Games, and it plays 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and playtime is 45 to 90 minutes. Now, think back to those old coin-op games of Double Dragon, Bad Dudes, those side-scrollers where you're beating up thugs and moving and grabbing equipment and throwing debris that's in the street. Well, that's what MegaMetroCity is. All right, let's take a closer look. MegaMetroCity is played in a series of stages or levels. These stages all have their own objective, what tiles to use, what cards to use, and so forth. They all have little story bits as well, which I will not spoil here. And then there's an overall arcing story mode that changes up some of the rules. But here we're just going to focus on a stage for this video. Now, there's things that you have to keep in mind when going after each of these stages. You can really go after any of the ones you want, but each of the characters can have different types of upgrades based on what difficulty level you will be playing. Now, once you've laid out your tiles for whatever stage that you've chosen, each of the scenarios has to be finished or completed in a certain number of turns. Like in this first stage, you have 10 turns to complete this particular mission in. And in this one, I won't spoil the story, but the boss battle, you have to take on Sid in the arcade. But you only have 10 turns to do this. So the time is not on your side, as there's so many enemies to deal with before you can get to Sid. This is a fully cooperative experience, and every player gets to choose a hero. We're going to take a look at Big T, because he's one of my favorites, really. So first you have the life bar across the top. Then you have his movement points, which Big T starts at 3. Then you have actions available, which are only 2 for Big T, but he's this big guy. He moves a little slower than everybody else, but he's a powerhouse. And then you have his attack value, which is 6+, just means you have to roll a 6 or higher to hit any thug on the board. Then you have his life value, which starts at 7. And his special ability, this is how much damage he does with that special ability. And at the very bottom, it outlines what that special ability does, which his is called Shiphead. He moves forward up to 7 squares in a straight line. Basically, he takes 7 dice, rolls those dice, and on a 5 or higher, he hits that entire square. So if there's 5 or however many thugs are in that square, they're all going to take damage. And based on the special ability value will be how much damage he does to each thug. So if you have some of the boss level guys in there, he could just potentially wipe everybody out as he mows through the board. Now, there's a huge penalty to using these special abilities. So for Big T, he's going to take 2 damage for using this special ability. Now, on the far right of the card is a place for you to track your actions and how many movements you've taken. Next, you're going to choose a difficulty level. And the way that's done is you use thug sheets. Yes, thug sheets. They range from normal to hard to very hard. But let's take a closer look at the normal. So these sheets are comprised pretty much of the same thing on all of them. And normal, you're going to see how many attack dice each thug gets, and then you're going to see what the number value they have to roll. So in this case, the thugs get 1 dice, and they have to roll a 7 or higher to hit the heroes. Now, there are 4 different types of generic thugs that can appear on the board. You've got punks, chains, musclemen, and roller girls. Now, the thug sheet shows some attributes for each of them. Roller girls have a movement of 3. Well, of course they have a movement of 3. They're on roller skates after all. And then you have musclemen, and they are big guys, right? They're only going to move 1 space, but they also have a defense value, which means you have to hit them twice to take them out. Now, you have chains, and these guys also only move 1 space, but they have a ranged attack. They can flip those chains out and hit the heroes that are 1 square adjacent to them. And then you have the punks, and they can move up to 2. But all of these thugs only have 1 attack dice, and again, they have to hit on a 7 or higher. Now, also based on the difficulty level, the heroes will get some improvements. So for normal, hard, and very hard, basically the improvements roll out as 3, 6, and 9. So you get these tokens. Every hero will get 3 tokens that they can place on their character sheet to enhance their hero. And basically what they do is you cover the stat on the furthest left, basically upgrading that stat to the next level. So you go back over to Big T here, and we're going to upgrade his health from 7 to 8. And so you have 3 of these tokens for each hero on the normal level, and you get to choose what stats that you can upgrade. All right, now let's take a look at some of the different card decks in the game. You have objects, you have thugs, and you have stunts. Now, objects are the thing you're going to be after for sure. So as you move along the street, there's street debris. One of the ways you get object cards is to destroy the street debris, and you'll place a token in the area to show that it's been destroyed and draw an object card. And there's numerous types of cards here. You can get food, you can get weapons, which is very sought after, you can get money, and you can get events. Now, some of these events are not always that great, but let's take a look at food. So, for instance, there's laser pizza, which restores 2 health. And then there's like a revolver, and there's tons of different weapon types. But the revolver shows how many uses it has, its range, how many dice you throw, and its target. Now, it's interesting to note that on the targets, when you see a single target, that means you can shoot a single thug. Now, if there's multiple targets, then that means you can take out a whole square. And there's money. And why is this important? So there's a 50 cents and there is 25 cents. And what's interesting about this is that you can take the 50 cents and find an arcade machine, and you drop the money in, and you can draw 2 object cards for 50 cents. You can also restore a fallen hero back, bring him back to life, basically. And you can also use 50 cents to upgrade one of your player's stats. Now, 25 cents, obviously, the only thing you can really do with that is draw more object cards, which again, that's very advantageous. And then there's the events, and not all these events are that great. They can really damage you. You can get run over. A car comes running down the street and runs everybody over. And earthquake, which will shift up the board. So if you finished one tile, the boards swap, and you may have to start from the beginning and go back all the way through the board. So there's some very interesting things, and there's some special items in there that do some very unique things like boombox and so forth. And there's a few other ways to get these object cards. So like on your turn, if you're able to take out 10 thugs, you get an object card. You take out the leaders, you take out bosses, and you take out final bosses. These are all ways to get more object cards. Now let's take a look at the thug cards. So this is how thugs spawn onto the board. And the most basic card is the one that will spawn multiples across the far edge of the board. And you've got like square 1, 2, 3, and 4. And based on the number of players will determine which of those squares are occupied when the thugs spawn. So like in a 4-player game, they're going to do all 4. 2-player game is just the top 2. So the card will also outline what thugs spawn in which location. And then the bottom will show what the thugs' actions are. Sometimes the thugs are just going to move and they're going to go after the nearest heroes. Sometimes they're going to move and attack. There's various things they can do. Now, it's not just the ones that spawned, but every thug on the board will activate. Another type of thug card is when they spawn next to doors, and the doors generally are located at the top of the street. So it shows what type of thug and how many spawn next to each of the doors. And again, there's actions at the bottom, move and attack, just move or just attack, and so forth. Now, the other really fun way that these thugs can spawn, like in the old school video games, is a van can pull out and guys jump out everywhere. And so the only thing they can't do is jump on top of debris. So you potentially could have like 4 guys jumping out of these vans and just appearing in the middle of your street. So there's a lot of ways for these thugs to appear, and they are relentless. They just keep coming, like in the old video games. Now, the last type of card is the stunt card. These are improvements for your character, much like improving the stats. So you have a choice. When you do improve them, you can choose to get a new stunt, which acts a lot like your special ability at the bottom of your player card, but they just augment your powers throughout the game. So you can spend 50 cents at the arcade or at the slot machine to get a stunt card or improve your stats. But there's various things here. There's like flying kick, wind strike, a teleport, tactics, and they just do varying things. So there's some nice choices for upgrading your characters. All right, let's take a look at the sequence of play. The first thing that's going to happen is the first player who has the cassette tape is going to advance the round. And then you draw a thug card. And based on that card, like we talked before, it will determine where the thugs are going to spawn, how many are going to spawn, and what their actions are going to be. So in this particular example, we pull a thug card and it is the van. It pulls up into the middle where the two streets combine and 4 roller girls jump out and they get to attack twice. Now the heroes are up. They get a series of actions they can perform. And of course, you can only do as many actions as your character has action points for, but there's a lot of choices here. You can attack, you can jump, you can push, you can destroy debris, you can throw debris, grab object cards, upgrade your characters, spend money, and it's just a numerous things. You can also exchange items with other players. Now, the interesting thing is that you have special abilities, right? So these special abilities can activate as well. And you can do any of this stuff in any combination. You can move and attack and move, however you want to do it. But again, you only have a limited number of actions and movement points, so use them wisely. Now, to simulate the side scrolling, how does that work? So as you move across the board and you've cleared one board and all the heroes are moved to the second board, then the first board goes away, the second board slides over, and the new one comes out. And it really does simulate that side-scrolling ability. Now, how does it end, right? So as you go through each of the missions, all the objectives are very different. So either the heroes all die, basically failing, or you achieve the objectives. And in this first level or first stage, you have to take out Sid. He's a boss level character. So there's just some very different things. And if you play the story mode, it has this fun little story running throughout. So that's basically how the game is played. Let's take a look at some final thoughts. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So the rules and artwork still may be in flux. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that might occur. Now, with all that said, I was a huge arcade coin-op kid. I loved playing those side-scrollers back in the day. And, they've really translated that video game experience into a board game. You really feel like you're moving along the street, you're grabbing debris, you're throwing it at the thugs, or you're finding items that you can use against the thugs, chains and Uzis and things mixed in the debris. Just random stuff dropping out of the air, basically. It really has that coin-op experience. And you really do get the sense of feeling completely overwhelmed at times with thugs everywhere. But, your characters have all those amazing special abilities that can just mow down a whole row of baddies. And it's just really has that experience that, from the arcade, I really was impressed with how well they translated that back from the coin-op experience into a board game. So if this looks like a game that would be of interest to you, I'm sure they would appreciate your support. So I think that's it from us. And until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.